Hello and welcome to Guns and Gear. You know, I've seen some videos lately talking about 3 combat blades, and I thought I would make a video and show some of my choices for a combat blade and maybe why. These choices are based off of some of the experience of my family in actual war, and they're very high quality, outstanding blades. All right. First off, I'm going to show you a 1917 model U.S. military bolo. Okay, and the reason that I choose this great big heavy knife is because of I had an uncle that was a Marine in World War II. He won a bolo knife very similar to this one in a poker game, and he saw a lot of combat in World War II in the Pacific Theater, and he actually has used his knife in combat, and he carried that bolo all throughout that war, and he carried that thing home, and man, you just never would have found a bigger fan of this knife. He loved that knife. At any rate, and because of his experience and recommendation, the first blade, combat blade I'd like to show you is the 1917 U.S. military bolo. Now, the second knife was never issued. I don't know that it was. I've read some stuff where they think it was issued maybe to some small units or whatever during World War II. I can't confirm that. I did go to the site and read quite a bit of the history. This is a EK knife. This is an EK Commando, and they started production in 1941, I believe. I think the design goes back to 1939. But John Eck, the man who designed the knives, felt so strongly about his knives that he restricted the sale to military personnel during World War II. And even in times when it was hard to get materials, the federal government was allocating him steel, because even though they didn't have this as a standard issue knife, it was very well thought of the troops. And on his site, he says that it was probably the most privately purchased military knife in history. You can check that out for yourself on EK Knives site. But at any rate, it has been used in every conflict that we've had since World War II, and it is an outstanding combat knife. Now, this one here happens to be one made from the Richmond, Virginia facility. They first started making knives in Hamden, New York, I believe it was, and then they moved, or Hamden, Connecticut, I'm sorry, moved to New York soon after that, I believe in 1941. And then moved to Florida, and finally in 1982 moved up to Richmond, Virginia, where the company is still making knives today. And they're very highly sought after, expensive knives. And it was in the 80s when I bought this knife, and my father and I and one of my uncles had gone to a gun show in the Richmond area, and there happened to be an individual from EK Knives that had a display there. And my uncle had served in World War II, and he had been a Ranger. He was in 101st Airborne. And he walked over and he picked up that knife and he said, this right here is the best fighting knife that they've ever made. And he began to tell me and my dad a few stories of, he never had one, but some of his friends who did have one, and what they thought of these knives. So all 3 of us ended up buying one of these knives. And this is just a pure combat knife. This is just made for fighting. Or as John Eck would say, it was just made for killing. Alright, the next knife needs no introduction, right? It's the United States Marine Corps K-Bar combat fighting utility knife. This knife is probably the most popular design, American design of a knife ever, right? Everybody knows about the K-Bar. The K-Bar was adopted, this version of the K-Bar was adopted in 1942, and it has seen a lot of service with our military personnel ever since, including today. And this is an older model, and yes, it does have the leather stacked. This is probably a 30-year-old knife. But at any rate, these are my 3 combat knives. I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching, and remember to shoot straight on the range and in life. Thanks.